Singularity.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Singularity One-on-One. Singularity One-on-One is a podcast feature of Singularity weblog where you can go and listen to it or download it in full. As you may already know, my name is Socrates, and as always, I am the man with the questions. Today, for the second time, my guest on the show will be George Dvorsky. George Dvorsky is perhaps one of the most notable and well-known Canadian transhumanists, bioethicists, and animal rights activists. So without further ado, hi George and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me back, Nicola.
Fantastic. I'm incredibly happy to have you back on the show, George, because the first time, not only did I learn a lot, but I actually had a lot of fun while doing it. And that's why we ended up having the longest interview on Singularity podcast, 1 hour and 14 minutes, which I still believe was full of good content.
Yeah, I remember having a lot of fun doing that myself, and I think because we kept it largely conversational, and it was a lot of fun doing it. So I'm glad to be back, and let's hope we can keep the same energy going and the same level of high level conversation going.
Let's hope so, and maybe even improve on it. So I would try to make this interview complementary to the first one, and thus I would avoid repeating or going over some of the topics we touched on the first time. And so let me start by this kind of a very personal question that goes to the core perhaps of what you have been doing and what you have been all about for the last perhaps decade. And that goes directly to your animal rights activism and the fact that during our last interview you admitted that you are a vegetarian, very long-standing vegetarian, for a number of what you called ethical, environmental, and health reasons. Now, I know that you had a huge struggle inside of you, and eventually you ended up embracing the Paleo diet very recently. And I'm one of the people who supports you on that entirely, but precisely because of who you are and who you have been, I want to find out more about that. So can you share how this whole thing unfolded?
Absolutely, and you're right. It was not an easy decision, and it continues to be something that I struggle with, not only as somebody who still engages in animal rights activism and looking out for the welfare of animals, but as someone who, at the same time, is concerned about the whole transhumanist aspect here and concerned about wellness and health and some of even the larger issues that you mentioned, such as the environmental impact and so on. So just to kind of peel back, perhaps, and it was interesting because it was in and around the time we did our last interview that I was going through this transitionary phase. And what I started, I was a vegetarian for approximately 10 years or so, primarily out of ethical reasons, but also environmental as well. And one of the things that I started to become very cognizant of was I did not feel that the vegetarian diet, as I was going about it, was the best diet for me. And I became increasingly interested in health and wellness and even optimizing my diet and wondering what is the best way to eat as a human being. And again, this definitely ties into the whole transhumanist side of things. Is my concern is not necessarily, well, my concern clearly when it comes to transhumanism is 10 years, 20 years, 75 years down the line in terms of some of the more disruptive and amazing technologies that await us. But similarly, I'm also a believer in the radical present and realizing that there's some extraordinary things at our disposal today that can enable us to either exceed or enhance or augment human capacities, and of course wellness and health, which are tantamount to the transhumanist vision, particularly life extension, as I'm sure you would agree to. So I started to become involved in at least the exercise and fitness component through the strength and conditioning work that I do at CrossFit. That's really one thing we can talk about. But once you start to do that sort of work and you start to push your body to certain limits, you start to see how your diet is absolutely tied in and around that. And my performance at the gym was seriously lacking. And I was making progress, but then I hit a wall. And some of my peers and some of the friends that I was working out with, I could see they were continuing to make progress, and I just seemed stuck. I did not like my body composition. I did not like, even how I was feeling both during and after workouts. And I felt that something something needed to change. And I was very aware at the time that there was this thing called the paleo diet, and I can get into the details in just a sec as to what that is. At the time, I tried to do zone, which is a very strict proportioning of diet, particularly as far as the proteins and the fats and the carbohydrates are concerned. And that was actually very revealing for me. I do recommend actually people who have a problem with portion control to certainly give the zone diet a shot. So what I did, I said, okay, I have to make a change here. I'm not feeling, that this is working for me anymore. Let's give this paleo diet a shot. And again, I'm all big on the whole quantified self thing and experimentation. And I meant, even vegetarianism, I will add, was an experiment, and it ended up lasting 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I basically said, okay, let's try paleo for about 30 days. Okay, so what is paleo? Paleo is an approach to eating that is also referred to as ancestral, or even an evolutionary approach to eating. It's viewed through the lens of biology, which says that really nothing can be understood except through the framework set up by Darwinian processes. And basically the idea is that our bodies and minds, arguably, they evolved over the course of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, to eat a certain way, namely animal protein and all natural foods such as vegetables and fruits and nuts, and pretty much nothing else, because there really wouldn't have been much prior to the Neolithic era, when after which agriculture emerged, and we have the advent of such things as grains and rice, and of course today highly manufactured and processed foods, which are undeniably the cause of many current diseases and ailments and problems. So it's really simply put, it's basically just an approach to whole foods and to natural foods. And I gave it a shot, and things you're eliminating from your diet are pretty extreme by cultural standards. So you're not eating any bread, you're not eating any pasta, no bagels, no rice. Again, nothing with any chemicals or added ingredients. So the meals are very straightforward in that sense. And because I'm largely unimaginative in the kitchen, they've remained that way. But I've seen some people on Paleo who have extraordinary diversity of foods that they're still able to prepare. So that's on my own personal failing, not necessarily failing of the diet itself. And I was blown away because, again, doing quantified self and measuring my performances and measuring my body composition, and after 30 days I was astounded as to the gains that I was making, because again, I had hit a wall and I was stuck 4 months. So my training didn't change, just my dieting had changed, and I started to feel much better, a better sense of wellness and clarity. And for me, really, as a result, there was no turning back. And like I said, I've made this now an indelible part of this kind of primal transhumanist approach that I have. So combined with the strength and conditioning and eating this kind of primal diet, I feel that I'm very, very close now to being as healthy as I possibly can, given the realities of the limitations today that we have in our medical sciences. And I do look at this very explicitly as a life extension strategy as well. It's not just living healthily in the present. I think that strength and this kind of wellness will bode well for when I do get older, when I enter into my elderly years. In fact, studies are showing that if you enter into your elderly years with having done a lot of resistance training and you're quite strong, you could add as much as a decade at the very least to your life. And that they're recommending now that even elderly people continue to do resistance training in those years. So we have to change our model and change the paradigm within which the elderly people are training. Right now we do things like we throw them in swimming pools and make them move their arms around, and that's just not adequate. They can continue to push the limits in terms of strength and kind of push the envelope forward in terms of their longevity. And this, of course, is all part of other strategies that you can employ. Another thing that I've recently done is double dosing my omega-3 fatty acids. So I take 6,000 milligrams per day, which is basically six pills. And because studies are showing that it staves off neurodegeneration even as early as your 40s. It reduces your chance of cardiovascular disease, and it'll stave off the effects of rheumatoid arthritis. This is all very simple stuff. Fish oil, or just eat lots of salmon. And it's not high tech, it's not bleeding edge stuff, but it's common sense stuff. And that's why, me and many other transhumanists are promoting this idea now that this is the best you can do today, given the constraints.